Hey listeners, this is the last thing we recorded when we got together to record the finale of the podcast. It's the question and answer episode. Be sure to stick around to the very end. First question, Big Papa G asks, what would have happened if the party hadn't opened the soul jar? It's been a hot minute since the end of Season 1, but would there have been a focus on ending the perceived threat of the Iron Empire? Some of these are questions for me, and I'll just go ahead and answer them. My answer is the party would have had a bunch of alternative side quests to pursue if they didn't do that. One might be overthrowing the oppressive Iron Empire. Another might be finding more observer sanctuaries so that Paxton could get more information about observers, maybe to try to tempt them into thinking about the outside world. They never visited the bigger cities in the Free Cities region, and there was some political intrigue that I was hoping to do there.
Oh.
They could also return to a rival and undertake some missions for Tara's family there. So those are some options. Is there anything that you think should have happened if you hadn't opened the soul jar? Destroyed the soul jar?
Oh, there was a lot of world to explore that we
Yeah.
didn't see.
Rumors
so.
would have broke, I guess.
Yeah. It would have gotten bad.
It feels like you had to get there eventually. It just would have taken longer.
Yeah. All right, another question from Big Papa G. When you created the characters, did you have a build in mind? For example, Tara as a battle master, was this the plan throughout? I can tell that Acer has been made reacting to the world, which is not a criticism. He does the same with cleric spells, etc. Has it been the same for everyone? So did everybody have sort of a build in mind from the beginning?
No.
Well, I kind of I reacted to what does he mean? What is the reacting to the world? Like I made my character based on...
was your plan always to just focus on Bard for Aster, or did you just sort of think, well, I got to keep doing Bard in reaction to the way the world and the campaign develop?
I kind of wanted my character to be kind of thiefy at first, and then I thought Bard was just a very comfortable character for me because I kind of like to play in that more dramatic theater space because I'm kind of a goofy person. And so Bard seems like a fun place to start.
Yeah.
Aster was very Bardy.
Yeah, I wanted him to feel very genuine as a character, so I thought Bards was cool. I know that usually Bards are played more like likes to chase, like the thrill of entertainment and like girls and or significant others. But I wanted him to be a little bit more fun, like innocent almost, because he found his way. But I wanted him to have a cool backstory, so that's why I multi-classed him rogue, so I could play off of that a little bit. And kind of in that weird space where I didn't know what I wanted him to be, is where the equivalent exchange thing came up.
Mama Sass was kind of
forced on
me.
Yeah.
But
sorry.
Jeez.
I mean, she was part of a backstory.
Yeah.
It's fine. But then once I had control, I did mostly barbarian because I don't know, that's just more fun for me. And I did a couple extra levels of bard just because there was cool stuff there. So, you know, it was really devoted to my whims. There wasn't a lot of planning there. Coral, I don't tend to like multiclassing. So, Druid.
Okay. Anybody else have any interesting plans or just sort of evolved?
I mean,
no
I tried
plan.
to take skills that made sense with the way the story was going. Like, I didn't want suddenly Tara to, like, learn some arcane spell casting.
Sure.
You know, it would have been handy, but it would have been silly. So, but it's pretty easy to just be a fighter.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Wait, what about Zartok? I'm really curious where the...
Zartok's just straight up wizard. What can he do? There's really no point in multi-classing as wizard until kind of those higher up levels.
Once you get to the higher levels and they're not really worth it.
Yeah, I didn't really know that. So I think if you were to play again, just go up to about level 14 and then you can start messing around with some other stuff. Gaston started off like Rogue Bard split, and I think Mike made the character to start with.
I think you made Mama Sass.
And I think with that backstory, Bard was always like a front, and he was always a rogue, so that's why all his levels after that were rogue.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
Cool. Who is each player's favorite NPC who isn't Lumpin'? My favorite, as the DM, is Epilema, even though it hurts to do her voice. I also like Mun, but that's because he has a backstory that the PCs never really discovered that I kind of liked. What about everybody else?
Gerlos, as much as he was mostly useless, was at least enjoyable.
Okay.
I guess I'll jump off of that since mine is the same. I really like Livarian's voice. I just find him so annoying. And you do such a good job making him Like, I want to fight him so
the
much.
worst.
And I really like is it the Far Off one? Yeah.
Yes.
I love that voice. I know it hurts your throat, but I love when you cackle.
Oh, yes.
With that
I didn't
character?
get to do the cackle this
So
time.
we didn't get any cackle this time.
So those two, I really like their voices, but my favorite character, hands down, is Garlos. I live, breathe Garlos NPC.
I 100% agree with the Far Off one. I love the Far Off one. I also really like Mun because one, he created Lumpin, who's obviously the actual favorite NPC, and also because he was like clutch. Like we came to him for advice constantly.
Right.
We needed him. He was very handy.
Cool.
My favorite was, and I'm blanking. It's bad to forget your favorite's name, especially when we just talked about him. The necromancer, the
Strethok.
Strethok at the bottom of the. Yeah, it was neat. It was a neat encounter. We had cool art to go with that.
Yeah.
And Epilema obviously is my favorite that we actually spent a lot of time with. But he was, like a lot of the quote unquote bad guys. A lot of the antagonists in this campaign were not evil antagonists.
Or they were at least complex.
Yeah, they were more complex than just the weather Nazi that you punch in the face.
We never had to kill him.
Yeah.
I don't know. Strethok or Zartok might eventually.
And
I mean, he did try to kill him a couple times. So,
DM Steelskin asks, where do you see your characters ending up after this? We already answered that. If you had to play an NPC from current episodes and whatever is coming next, who would you play? Okay, so I guess we'll just use the same answers. If you had to pick an NPC.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be Garlos.
And for you?
Probably Ansna.
Ansna.
I don't want to play Garlos. I just think he's funny.
Okay.
Wait, I want to change my mind, but I see Josh nipping to say something. So I'll go.
No, I'm thinking.
Okay. So I switched from Garlos. I would really like to NPC the Far Off.
Oh, sure.
That would have been
A
cool.
lot of power there.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the voice and laugh like that.
Okay.
I don't think I could do the voice, and that's why I won't pick her.
Okay.
Sure.
I don't know what NPC I would play. Righty.
Righty.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
amazing.
Good choice.
Yeah, that's good.
I forgot. I do love him.
I thought you might. I thought you might have wanted
lady.
to pick him as your favorite.
I kind of forgot about him for a minute, but yeah, he was awesome.
It's been a lot of NPCs. It's easy to forget some.
Yeah, there's too many.
He was
There's a
amazing.
lot. I'd be Raphael. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
That's what I
god,
did.
that's amazing.
Pink asks, I really want to know what happened to Foresight. It was never really explained what his sacrifice was or why he specifically carved those messages into World 83. Okay, so some explanation, because some of that wasn't laid out explicitly. Foresight did the same thing the God King did. He expended the last of his power to carve a massive warning in that large stone by the Eastern Bubble. He was trying to prevent the people in World 83 from breaking through the glass of their world. The warnings also advised the people in World 83 that when the world started to overheat, they would need to release the souls trapped in the soul jar because those souls would push the lid off the jar, venting the hot air and allowing people to escape. All of this propelled the party on the main storyline, of course. Unfortunately for Foresight, that big stone was partly buried in the ground, so a lot of this message that he magically carved into it wasn't visible, and the party had to dig to expose all of that message.
Yeah. I think I figured most of that out.
Okay. Fancy Bone, or Pavel, asks, what's Lavarian doing with the magic wand in the background? Well, he's getting his army together and summoning
ice
giants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Strethok versus Lavarian. Who would win? Does the equation change if every survivor of the research complex fights with Strethok? I guess, so I'll add actually extra explanation here. So I wrote that Lavarian was gathering an army and using that army to conquer a city known for shipbuilding. He used the ships to move the army to Laravella to attack the Neogi and recreate the Regid Empire. As to who would win between Strethok and Lavarian, it depends on whether Lavarian has the wand. If he has the wand, then he wins. Otherwise, Strethok wins.
Well, could I add a little bit? What if Strethok completed his creature? Because Lavarian is pretty magic focused.
Yeah, I guess if it complete, it depends what you mean by complete. Like the creature never seemed to really work that well.
Well, I guess repaired made more effective.
I guess if it worked exactly the way he wanted, then it would probably kill both Strethok and
I hated that
Lavarian
blob so much.
Yeah.
That was fun to listen to when I was a listener.
Varen asks, oh my gosh, as detailed as possible.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh.
What order and amount of detail went into the world building from the start? The meta plot of how their particular crystal sphere gets hot, Strethok working to find a solution, the deities, and how divinity works. Basically, how much was designed before session 1, what and when the rest was implemented. Okay, so here we go. I worked out World 83 in great detail before session 0, including a map, the overall plot, city descriptions, big NPCs, history, etc. I knew there was going to be I was going to go with a second edition AD&D idea of how deities work from the beginning. You know, they get power from prayers. I had a rough idea of what the Wizard Research Complex was, and I didn't work out the details until we finished Season 1. And that's when I figured out Strethok was at the bottom. I also worked out the relationships between all the different Wizard Complex researchers as I built that up, and I used that to leave little notes around so the players got to look at that history of the Wizard Research Complex. Then I started working on Season 3 while we were getting to the end of Season 2, and Season 4 was really just Season 3 continued. So, to summarize, a huge amount of planning went into the story from the beginning. I had a lot of this planned out from the beginning, although there are some twists toward the end that there's no way I could have anticipated, and so I adapted to go along with those. Anyone have any questions or anything they want to add?
I assume God Coral was one of those twists.
Yes, right, yes.
Yeah.
Were there any other twists that you can tell us about that you didn't expect for the story?
I mean, God Coral was the big one.
But you did that.
Well, sort of.
It's not like we did.
Coral,
we didn't do
I
it.
had to make some consequences for Coral trying to save the God King.
Okay.
So, other big surprises at the end. I mean, there are little surprises. Like, I didn't expect you guys to use an arcane eye to find the best place to surprise all the monsters in Art of Laravella. That was really effective. Things like that that I didn't anticipate. Very smart play, right? I mean, it's not that I didn't expect you guys to be smart. It's just I didn't expect that particular clever approach, right?
It's high level magic.
Yeah.
Oh.
Another question from Varen. Varen asks, Paxton wakes up with a smashed crystal. That takes a lot to break a stone, but if that stone is on someone's body, the force required is going to do more than just break the stone. How was the stone smashed? After years of purging the other watchers or observers for his own twisted benefits, who and how was someone finally able to jump him? Here's just me explaining backstory stuff. I think most of this was eventually revealed, but it was in such small bits over time that the whole picture may be kind of unclear. Paxton, back when he was Quia, worked as part of the security team in the Wizard Research Complex. He had some moral qualms about the way the climate refugees are being treated, the way they had their minds wiped and then were dumped in the glass worlds. This was to save their lives and encourage them to let go of their prejudices and get along in their new worlds, but these refugees were not fully informed of what would happen. Paxton was caught looking into forbidden magic more than once, and each time he had his mind wiped, and eventually he led a revolt, but Strethok and his undead defeated it. Paxton's mind was wiped, and he had a reporter gem, or observer gem, implanted in his head. But here's the catch. Paxton was tested for compatibility with the reporter gem by those two guys, Bertrand and Rickert, and he failed the test, which means he wasn't compatible. Some people cannot have the gems implanted in their heads without developing dangerous mental health problems, and that's what happened to Paxton. So Rickert and Bertrand, the heads of security, knew that he wasn't compatible, but they had the gem implanted in him anyway and threw him into World 83. Paxton was therefore one of the first people in World 83, and he lived for a couple thousand years as an observer. He became paranoid, believing that everyone was out to expose him as an observer because of that incompatibility with the gem, especially other observers. He began sending observers into traps that got them killed and eventually made enough people angry that a group of warriors was sent after him. Paxton set a trap for them in a cave, making the cave collapse, but the roof fell on him as well, knocking him unconscious and knocking the stone loose from his head. A couple days later, he stumbled out of the cave with no memory of who he was. A kindly farmer took him in, and he started a new life, free from the effects of the gem.
How much of that was you and how much of that was Brian?
That was almost all me.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. I
There's
imposed
a lot of, you've got to have a lot of knowledge for most of that backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was almost all me. And then everything that happened after that was all Brian.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another question. Doppelgangers and glassbreakers are a great thread left unpulled. What was your plan for them? Did you have anything planned from the beginning as a high-level idea for plots? Should the party ever step back into the glass world for something? So we got to see some of this in the Lumpen episodes, thanks to Pink. The basic idea was that the doppelgangers had managed to get into the world by disguising themselves as other beings, and once they awakened inside, they wanted nothing more than to get out, even though they had also had their memories erased.
That is hilarious.
That's funny.
Yeah, they had their memories erased, so they didn't remember the outside world either, but they knew something wasn't right. They started working on plots to break through the glass walls, trying to get the other species to help them. The Glassbreakers were a cult that they started to try to get other species working on breaking through the glass. So I did have that plan from the beginning as a sort of thing that would come up repeatedly, but you guys just did a speed run straight to the end of season 1. So that didn't really come up much again. Was there ever a plan for higher level threats inside the glass-guarded world should the players return? The party could confront some higher level NPCs, but I wasn't going to have powerful monsters in the world. The plan for that was just what you heard at the end.
Was it always planned to end in World 83?
That was my goal, was to try to get it back there, because it seemed like a natural thing to do.
It's possible we could have managed to kill Lavarian with one big hit or something.
And
then
it's not impossible. Yeah. Podrick asks, where did you all meet? Who introduced you? Did Mike have a screening process? So I put out a call for players in the local Facebook group, which no longer exists. And these are the folks who answered, minus one guy who showed up for character creation but never showed up again. And my screening process was that I asked the players to read the background and also told them I didn't want jerks and that social skills were a requirement. And I got lucky. I got fantastic players. No complaints. Podrick also asks, how far are we through this?
Well, could I add a little to that? Because, I mean, I guess...
that was the first of the three of us.
The initial set of players, right. And then I recruited...
Danielle
through my wife who knew her husband. And then...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's cool.
And apparently she mentioned D&D in the podcast at a party, and Danielle said, what? Yeah, so...
Has she played?
She'd played before. She'd played like second edition or something, I think.
Okay.
And Chris, how did you join?
So I joined because of Josh. So what happened was that I just had joined a group with Josh and some kids at a place called Burrito Border in Tallahassee. And I think everybody had a lot of busy schedules, so we couldn't keep that campaign kind of going. But Josh had heard about, or I don't know how you heard about Mike's campaign.
Well, I listened to I was a listener, and I would force Mike to do awful things like live shows.
Right.
And I don't remember. I think Mike gave me a heads up that that Andy was leaving.
Right.
Yeah, because of what happened.
And
because he had to move to Chicago. He didn't have to leave because a character died.
Yeah.
He left because he was moving, but his character...
The character death was coincidence.
Yes.
And we had a great think in that Burrito Border thing.
Yeah, they were great players.
So, but you were a good upcoming role-playing player. And it was like, I think you should check out this Chris kid.
Yeah, because I'd never really played.
He's got something. He's got a little something.
I had never played D&D until I went to that Burrito Border place and I met these great guys. And so as soon as Josh was like, hey, there's this podcast, and I've always wanted to do voice acting as a career, but never made it happen. Life took me somewhere else. I was like, this is a cool opportunity, and D&D is so fun. And then it was really scary to go to Mike's house the first time.
I get that. I get it.
Josh was like, yeah, you should go. And then I got in contact with Mike and I went to this house and Mike is like, so this is what's going on. And then he said exactly what he said a second ago about the kind of player that he wanted and what he didn't want. And then asked me kind of to think up of a character. And then when we decided on those pieces, he had me roll right in front of him all the stuff. And it was very intimidating because I didn't know what to expect from Mike and from this campaign. And it turned out to be an amazing experience with some really cool people.
Yeah, you're lucky. Mike is a good combination of an old school game master with new school game master stuff. Like, you're getting both worlds with Mike. You're not just getting one side. It's good. It's the best of both, I think.
And I don't want to toot your horn, Mike, but...
Oh, I just did. Beat you to it, bud.
I know. Let me add let me add to the horn tooting. I think, in being introduced to that first group and playing with them was really exciting, and I got to learn some of the basics. But playing through your campaign, Mike, and then some of the things I did locally, but specifically your campaign, made me a better D&D player.
Yeah, so practice makes perfect. Yeah.
You're so good at this.
Well, thank you.
Wait.
Yeah.
What about Jessica?
Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Facebook. I put out another request on Facebook.
Burrito Border too.
I thought so too.
I did Burrito Border, but it was not connected to this.
Okay.
Yeah, he put out a call in the Facebook group, and
I don't know how I've been so lucky. I mean, I don't know if it's something I said or did, or some way I intimidated away the bad players. But I've been super lucky with just top-notch players.
Oh, we've all been lucky. Yeah. It's
a good group.
Really awesome.
Let's see. What else? Podrick asks, I know Mike has talked about the podcast being in next podcast being in space. Is there something the players are itching to try? Well, that's Star Frontiers, and that's probably going to be on Tales of Bob. Anybody want to play some Star Frontiers? That's probably what we'll do.
I have a lot more time now.
That's so true.
Oh, that's so weird. A podcast just ended. You were
Spire
on.
just ended.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're freed
And
up.
Yeah.
This just ended.
Yeah.
Got a lot more time than I used to.
Yeah, me too. I hope. And then, so that's. Is there something
That's
else you're
funny.
itching to try? Is there something you really want to do?
This is our chat from yesterday.
This is basically our chat from
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
Yeah, I guess just listen back to the
Yeah, it was
chat
there.
5. I think we talked about this.
Yeah, because I really want to play Fallout so bad.
I didn't mention this yesterday, but I
Yeah.
would like to try Call of Cthulhu.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that would be so cool.
I don't, do a lot of horror, but I'm down for it.
I think Sean should run that.
Yeah.
I think Sean would be
Yeah.
good at that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, Podrick asks, what NPC would you want to hang out with? And which PC would you like to hang out with?
Oh my gosh.
And why?
Personally, like me,
Yeah, you personally. I would hang out with any PC except for Athelflaed. Because I think Athelflaed is scary.
She's a psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of psychotic. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
I don't
lie.
think I would want to hang out with her. Paxton would probably be the most fun to hang out with, or possibly the most annoying. I'm not sure. Probably most fun. As for
see
NPCs,
that.
I think I'd get along with Ansna.
uh-huh.
I don't know about anybody else.
It's Ansna for NPCs for sure. I don't know about PCs. Tara probably.
NPC, obviously the answer is Lumpin. I don't know what you guys are thinking. You're all insane. Lumpin, cute. That's the answer.
Okay.
For player character, I think Paxton is a really good choice, except for has he bathed?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh right. You got to consider the smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the puns.
Yeah.
Well, I
No,
can
that's
handle
the
that. I
How
love
long can
them.
you deal with the puns?
It'd be fine.
Brandon asks, assuming you don't get your TPK, correct? How would you engineer one within the existing world? I don't know. I don't want to engineer a TPK. I want to engineer encounters that are dangerous enough that a TPK is possible, but I don't want to guarantee one.
I mean, it's really easy to engineer one. Like all of the dragons
Yes.
decide they don't like you and
And-
attack you at once.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
I
It's
don't.
bad storytelling. But
Yeah.
An interesting, difficult, but winnable combat is the hard thing. And
Right.
that's one of the
Yes.
things that Mike's really good at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do the players feel about the XP-based level system that has them at different levels rather than all at the same level together?
Fine.
Yeah, I thought I would be more annoyed by that, but I was actually really okay with it. Would I have liked all of us to be at the same level throughout the campaign, like going up together? Maybe. But it was kind of cool to see how we came in at different times. And so,
I thought it was nice that we didn't all level up at the exact same time. So, like,
Yeah, it's nice
Yeah.
to see it spread around a little bit.
yeah, it was nice to see it spread around. It didn't really affect me that much because I didn't have the 2 character thing. So for me, it was fine.
I would have liked more XP, but being at different levels did not bother me.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't get to level 20, but this is the highest level game I've ever run.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's the only one I've played.
We
Yeah.
got close enough.
Yep.
I mean, we were there.
Not really an end of show question, but would you be willing to post the character sheets online? Sure. Were you prepared for the eventuality that the PCs might embrace the idea of becoming gods? How would you have approached it? I was not very well prepared, and I'll talk more about this shortly. Why does arcane magic create heat, but divine magic does not? Answer, so the story can happen. Also, that was
There you go.
also that was partly inspired by the Dark Sun setting, in which arcane magic destroyed the world, turning it into a barren desert. Multiclassing is rather prevalent in this campaign. Did you specifically suggest multiclassing to the players, or were those independent decisions? I suggested Athelflaed be a rogue monk for story reasons, and the same goes for Aster being a rogue bard. I think the same was also true for Gaston and Mama Sass. They all have classes dictated by their backstories. Other than that, I did not suggest any multiclassing. How far ahead was the notion of Coral, or any one of the cast, becoming a god forecast? Like, was that an idea that came to mind based on the actions taken during the adventure that sparked it, or was it always a possibility you've planned for? That idea came to mind as soon as Coral tried and failed to save the God King. I decided I had to make that attempt meaningful. I also felt like I had failed Jessica, who was, I think, pretty grumpy with me.
I was a little grumpy.
I am not sure she's happy with the result.
I'm pretty happy with the results. It's fine.
Okay. But I liked where it went story-wise.
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay. Are you going to have to change the name of the show when it's over and you change systems and stories? So we talked about this a bit, but I should probably clarify. Now that the story is over, we're going to continue playing games with the House of Bob in the House of Bob podcast and the Tales of Bob podcast. The Tales of Bob podcast will continue playing through the Quest for the Frozen Flame, Pathfinder 2nd Edition Adventure Path, with occasional interruptions for short series of Cowboy Bebop games. Here's something new. We're also going to start recording a long-term Star Frontiers campaign using my revised rules. You got to hear the playtest a few months ago, so that's the plan. This podcast feed will stop updating, and everything new will be over on one of those 2 podcasts. What was the plan for the dangling cow soup plotline? I was going to have the goblins spread a disease among the cattle in an attempt to afflict the world's food supply of the other sentient species in World 83. The party would have had to fight their way up the chain of command to the hobgoblins in charge. It's a bad plan, of course. Humans can eat things other than beef. So that's sort of the point. It's a bad goblin plan. But Pavel did a good job wrapping that story up. More questions from Padre. What was each player's first D&D character? Mine, I don't remember exactly because I was so little, but I think it was a wizard back in basic D&D in like 1979 or something. What about the rest of you?
Mine was college. It was 3.5. She was a cleric, and I don't remember race at this point, but definitely cleric because nobody else wanted to be the healer.
My first D&D character was a lizard person cleric also, but I think we played like 1 or 2 games, and then, so it didn't get very far. And then I actually played Pathfinder 1st edition, and I had a sorcerer gnome, I believe.
Cool.
Nice.
My first character was a human wizard, level 13, named Trey. He retired after getting his skin ripped off
Well, that'll do it.
at level 15.
Wow.
He didn't want any more adventuring.
No, that's fair.
Wow. My first character was, like I said, in the burrito border place. I was a character named Corbin Salazar, and it's like a running theme now in this campaign that I'm really into, like vampires and werewolves and
Edgelord stuff.
Yeah.
edgelordy kind of things. And
Yeah.
so my first character was from Critical Role inspired character. It was a blood hunter with a multi-class and like 1 or 2 levels in fighter. And I was really excited to play that character as an aristocratic hunter, but then that campaign didn't continue, and I think I transitioned to really cool things.
Which NPC came first? Who was the first one Mike generated? I think Mun was the first NPC I made for this campaign. He actually appeared in a home game I ran almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Will we ever see Ashley run a campaign? She has talked about running The Witch is Dead. What do you say, Ashley?
I have talked about running The Witch is Dead. Sure, I'll do it.
Okay, there you go. Is there a race or creature you wish had shown up, and what about them interests you? I wish we'd had more dragons.
Yeah.
I think we did pretty good.
Yeah, we did a pretty good job.
we
we
did.
covered all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Did we ever have
Wait.
mind flayers?
We had
Yeah.
mind flayers, we had Nyogi, we had beholders, we had dragons, we had kobolds and goblins and orcs.
I'm okay with it, but we didn't have a lot of water.
That's true.
Water, but
That would've
fighting
been
in
cool.
water is super annoying, so I'm okay with
Sucks.
it.
Yeah. Did you intend for the group to use some of the magic items and potions in the way they did? I didn't really have any plan for them to be used in any specific way. Sure, whatever they did was cool. The clushness of some of the items and the huge cash gain from others has been helpful to the group, but some of these items come from Season 1. Were you expecting them to be so conservative? Actually, yes, that's very common for players to hold on to items and not use them. They hold on to them so long, they forget that they have them,
Yeah.
like Scrolls of Restoration, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird example to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little specific.
Weird.
If you could get an animated version of the podcast, what style do you think would suit it best? I don't think it'd be possible to do it justice, actually. I think the story is too long and too slow. I wouldn't want an over-the-top anime style because I really don't think it would fit. I think it would be too melodramatic. I would want something more chill. And if you really pointed a gun at me and said, choose a style or else, which would be weird, I would say maybe, I know it's weird, a strange choice, but maybe something like Rankin and Bass style.
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Like the
Let's
animated
look this
Hobbit,
up.
the original
Old school.
animated Hobbit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real old school.
Yeah, it's real
That's
old school.
real old school. I would like to interject about the anime thing. Maybe not the anime of today's standards, but if you've ever heard of Studio Ghibli,
Oh yeah, so some Studio Ghibli or
that would be a cool style.
or like older style anime where it's a little bit slower. I wouldn't mind that.
Not
Yeah.
quite so flashy.
Not
and
so flashy and melodramatic, and yeah, it's a little bit more chill. What incident or encounter would you love to see animated? I would love to see the Battle of the Eastern Bubble, the Spelljammer battle in which some of the other crew used a dimension door to get aboard Corellan's Needle. Those two come to mind for me. What about the rest of you?
Definitely not that last battle, because it would be super boring animated. Come back here.
The one before it was cool.
That was cool.
That was a very good battle.
Variety of monsters, a lot of spells thrown around.
The one where the time clock hits and the Neogi attack, like that whole sequence, right? Like it begins with the releasing the gnomes or fighting the pirates, and then it's like very long.
Yes.
That was
going up into the ship, almost dying.
Flying around, saving the people, the guys from inside the ship.
Yeah, as the ship is falling, that could be visually very.
That was
cool.
one of our scariest fights.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will always remember that fight.
Cool. Dizzy Right Stan asks, "What the heck was the deal with the Etten in space? Did Raphael eat his parents?" I don't think Raphael ate his parents. They just died of old age. But I do think he ate the cows while fooling his brother into thinking there was a monster.
Yeah.
But we don't know for sure. There were plans for a one-shot with the Etten, by the way, but we just never got around to it. There's just too much going on. FancyBone/Pavel asks, in the player's guide, you said Warforged will only be allowed under a very restrictive role-playing requirement. What was the requirement? What restrictions would you have placed on Warforged characters? So if someone wanted to play a Warforged, they were going to have a backstory in which they tried to break into Mun's house, but accidentally swapped places with him in the ritual that gave him his armored body, turning the player into Warforged. And that's what Mun is, mechanically speaking. He's actually Warforged. This would also mean the PC would have to start as a rogue or bard and be played appropriately. And that's it.
Could I add to that a little bit? Because I've had my own fan theory that I think would have been so cool. Eventually, in some point, our boy Lumpin was his soul. He did actually have some kind of soul.
Oh.
And he was transitioned into a Warforged body, so he gained sentience.
Oh, yeah.
That'd have been cool.
Yeah.
Lumpin forever.
Lumpin forever.
Lumpin could live
Lumpin forever.
Oh, hey, he just confirmed it. Lumpin can live forever.
He could live forever unless he gets burned up or something, you know?
He's too squishy, man.
Another question. Has anyone we assume to have died off screen actually survived due to succeeding on their death saves? I don't remember. So I don't know.
What about that pirate creature?
I think the answer is no.
Yeah, probably not, but I don't know. At the start of the show, you were pretty strict about keeping track of dates and having the players do so also. I don't think I made you guys keep track of dates.
No.
What was going to be or was happening in the background while the players were doing things? Did they let any major quests expire or anything of that type? I was keeping track of the breaking of the other rivers while the players dawdled around, or actually just sped around.
Didn't dawdle.
Around inside World 83. I also had the Iron Empire making moves on other nations, including the blockade of Arrival. So all of that was on a ticking clock. And so that's why I was keeping track of dates. What happens to gods when they die? Does the God King get reunited with his daughter in the afterlife, or do they have separate realms that they spend their afterlife in?
That's good.
I don't know for sure, but I like to think that they revert to their mortal souls and go wherever those would go. So the God King would be reunited with his daughter, probably. I don't know.
Like it.
Why did you decide to start a podcast, and did you already have a sound engineering background? I had been listening to actual play podcasts since shortly after 5th edition came out, and I thought that there were things about several of them that I did not like, and I thought that I could do better, which is, of course, hubristic and stupid. But, oh well. I also wanted to experiment with a story in which the primary problem was one with no particular villain behind it. It was a collective action problem or coordination problem. I wanted to see if it was possible to tell a story of that kind in a role-playing game, because those kinds of stories are interesting to me, but they're difficult to make into narrative, right? So that's one reason I want to do this. No, I did not have an audio engineering background, though I did have classical piano training, and I recorded some music in college for fun. Was Lavarian actually a dragon, or an elf pretending to be a dragon? Lavarian is an ancient elf and a highly skilled illusionist. The dragon was an illusion. Yeah, he tried... The dragon that you saw in the gnome village, right? Now, that white dragon, that was a real dragon. He tried to wow the party with that illusionary dragon, but he didn't realize there were no dragons in the glass worlds. Otherwise, he would have picked something that you might have recognized.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny.
Your pantheon is pretty heavily based on the Greek gods. What changes would you have made, if any, if instead you went with the Norse gods or another culture's pantheon? I don't really know. I picked the Greek gods because they're so closely tied to specific concepts. The Norse gods are a little bit less precise about what it is they cover exactly. I just don't know what I would have done. What I would have done with a different pantheon. This one, I think, just served my purpose as well. I know the Greek gods are pretty banal and trite and hackneyed at this point, but that's what I went with. How many classical references have you dropped into the podcast that have gone completely over the heads of the listeners and players? I don't know. All the gods are named after either the literal meanings of their names, like Skyfather, or I use the epithets that were frequently used to refer to them, such as cow-eyed mistress. Foresight is simply Prometheus, although his name actually apparently in Greek means forethought. So maybe you didn't catch those references, but yeah, there are a few references like that. A question for Josh. How did you decide to give Zartok and Papa Gaston their respective accents?
We had talked about what to give Gaston as an accent, and I think Mike was leaning towards like New Jersey, like mobster accent. I didn't think I could nail it at the time. I'm watching Sopranos right now, so maybe eventually I could do that well. But I did grow up with a lot of people with heavy French accents, so I knew that I could probably do that pretty well. Zartok was because I think I was listening to what's that podcast called? Glass Cannon, and Skid did a really excellent accent of that, and I did my best to try to do it.
Cool. What's the fastest possible speed run the party could have done to achieve a reasonable ending solution to the problem? No TPK. I think the fastest thing would be go straight to the magistracy, take Mun's mission to the Western Bubble, go to the Eastern Bubble to get the truths of Foresight, then go straight to a rival and break the soul jar using Sigvart's shop to skip around as much as possible. If you want me to continue outside, speed running the wizard complex would be difficult because access to the bottom was gated behind lots of barriers like a Metroidvania game. Once you get to Strethok, you then have to give Lavarian the wand, and then get famous enough in the outside world to attract the far-off one's attention, and then immediately spread the jars around the crystal sphere. You can then persuade the far-off one to deny spells to Lavarian. You might be able to do that. And then you can defeat Lavarian, again, maybe with a chase back into World 83, maybe not. But, I mean, that's sort of what you did. There was more sort of traveling around and exploring the outside world than was strictly necessary, but I think that was important world building and important for you to sort of learn more.
Was being enemies with the Neogi something we created?
Yeah, you didn't have to make that happen. You could have sort of ignored all the slavery, but it's hard for heroes to do that.
Hard to ignore slavery, yeah.
It's hard for a modern player to ignore that.
Yeah. I want to add, I don't know if this is a question later in this, but was it hard for anybody else to sometimes not say the name? Like, because we're supposed to be so ignorant, at least me and Tara, of like characters, monsters, and creatures outside of World 83. Sometimes I had a hard time remembering that I didn't know what that looked like or was.
I tried.
Like a dragon and a vampire. I kept calling them out like if I knew what they were, but I shouldn't.
I think it's all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it annoying to manage the menagerie of NPCs? Sometimes, yes. It is hard to remember all the things that talk. How do you go about building encounters? I start with the D&D Beyond encounter builder, and then I increase the difficulty a bit because it's really too soft. It assumes you're doing multiple encounters a day, and if you're going to do just like one big encounter a day, then you need to make it much more difficult. Sometimes I use the 5e Tools website, which is an independent website, to create more powerful versions of lower challenge rating monsters. So, for example, I did that with the Umber Hulks that you fought in the air.
Stupid Umber Hulks.
Man, they were hard.
Did everyone have a good idea of what characters they would play if their mains were killed, beyond the standard library of one-day characters most D&D players carry around in the back of their minds? And is this answer different for players who are playing multiple characters already? Would they have just started playing their second character exclusively, or would they have come up with another secondary character?
Good question.
In that similar line, was the fact that some players had multiple characters just a natural consequence of the game as Mama Sass and Gaston decided to follow the party, or was that something that was planned? Yeah, I don't really know. As for Gaston and Mama Sass, that was not really planned. It happened as a result of how the story evolved and Aster's backstory. What do you think? Did you guys have a secondary player you were ready to use to replace the main?
When I thought that Tara might die at the end of season 2, because Mike definitely left that as a cliffhanger for me too, I had to prepare a new character to replace her. So my plan was, in my ultimate pettiness, to create a barbarian, and there's a barbarian path where the goal of the barbarian is just to die and then be resurrected, and just play that character.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I didn't know if I was going to die, but I was scared that you were going to kill me. So I started thinking about what I could play, and then I thought it'd be funny to make a paladin of the Seafoam Wanderer as a character.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to play Mama Sass if Coral died, as kind of happened towards the end. Mama Sass, I was given the option to play Mama Sass or create a new character when I came on full time, but I like magic users.
Yeah.
I would have just played Gaston. I
Yeah.
enjoy playing Gaston. He's a little silly, but that's fine.
That's fine. He's fun.
We couldn't bring in Gaston when I joined the podcast because he was stuck in the jar. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
had to figure out a new person to come in, and
Yeah.
the party needed somebody
Wizardly.
with some magic.
Yeah.
We didn't get to ask this question before because we had to move on, but if I could hang out with a PC, and this is not because it was part of my backstory, you really play Papa Gaston really well. And I liked how you made him
It's
and ran him.
I think he'd steal from you.
kind of chubby guy that likes cheese. Kind of easy for me to fit
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
good to eat good food and it'd be fun.
Wine and cheese, yeah.
Cheese
sign
and
me up.
wine, yeah.
And he knows how to get rich quick. Steal a sword.
Yeah. Still stored with wishes on it, yes. Can Strethok be convinced that the magic problem is solved, or is he basically monomaniacal at this point and convinced that his way is the only way? I don't know. I think he's probably pretty focused on destroying arcane spellcasters. Maybe Coral and the Far Off One can change his mind. Maybe Zartok can change his mind now that they've made all these big changes. It sounds like Zartok's going to try to become buddies with him. So I don't know. I think maybe he can change. I don't know what he's going to do now. He became a lich so he could pursue this as his sort of the permanent goal. I don't know what he's going to do now.
Livarian was more like that. Like he thought his way was the only way.
Yeah. Do cows actually like soup? No, they don't. Just Evening asks, what was that conversation with Aster and Zartok, the one on the Spelljammer where they talked about Terra? Yeah, Chris and Josh, what was the deal with that weird, awkward conversation?
Okay, that's my fault a little
I
bit.
was going to say, that
What
seems
was
like
it?
mostly
What was which
a
one?
Chris question.
Yeah, that's a my fault kind of thing. For some reason, because I was reading into Josh role-playing Zartok the way he was role-playing him, and I was like, does he like Terra, or is he trying to create like a situation? I didn't know it was more like family-oriented. You can elaborate more on this, Josh? Like it was because she looked like your family
I
or
mean,
something?
you know, there was a way to unlock the dialogue options, and they just never happened.
Yeah,
so it's a story that nobody will ever know.
I'm thinking now that it was maybe someone in your past that made you think, like she made you think of them. But originally, I thought you were like interested in her. And then in the beginning of the campaign, I admired Terra's character a lot. So I was trying to introduce that Aster had like an affection towards Terra. And so then I saw you liking her. And so I thought I needed to take a step back and needed to ask because I needed to find out if Zartok had feelings for her. And so I made that interaction occur, but it didn't go that way. And then
I
things
was
just...
annoyingly ambiguous, so it's
Yeah,
not
it was
your fault.
really annoying. I was trying to
Not your
figure out
fault.
what was
I
going
did that
on.
purposefully.
That's
to
on
Yeah,
be-
you
me.
did.
to be annoying. And just sidebar, what did do that with the Gaston thing and Coral thing, but then I was like, that it's one kind of creepy. And also, you know, playing with women in a campaign, you don't want to put them in that position. So I
Exactly.
regretted doing that. So I was like, all right, let's back that away. You don't want to make anybody feel awkward. So now other tables and podcasts do that, and I guess, but anyway, that's just because the distance between season 2 and 3 was too long, and I was like, oh, how can we spice things up? Let's have Gaston sing to the new. And then I pulled that back right away. I was like,
That was
let's not
hilarious.
do that.
I
liked
thought it
it.
was funny when he was like, "Oh, you're too young."
Oh, you're 14 years old.
right. My dad.
In general,
Anyway.
I avoid any romance
was
with my
up that-
RP characters.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, just much easier that way.
Yeah, sorry to not give the full and make the Zartok one awkward. It was just, you'll never know.
Yeah, and maybe it probably wouldn't have worked in the way we were playing it. So I kind of like the way that it went.
Okay. Health asks, what is a storyline that our heroes never followed up on that you wish they had in the jar, on the island, and out in the big world? All right, I got several here. There was a storyline in World 83 with Carlton the Cruel and a guy who talked like Boomhauer that the party just turned down cold. There was also the whole Cow Soup storyline. Both would have been interesting, although Cow Soup was eventually explored by Pavel. I think they left no stone unturned in the Wizard Research Complex. There was a little more opportunity to dig into the petty squabbles between the wizards who used to inhabit the complex, and there was a tiny bit more on Paxton's background that they could have discovered, but basically they did everything interesting there. They pretty much 100%ed or 98%ed it. In their second visit to Sigil, I had 2 entirely different adventures planned, depending on which direction they went. They went a direction that led them, at the end, to that fight with the Githyanki. The other was going to lead to a fight with a swarm of cranium rats, but they didn't do that one. They went left instead of right. In the outside world, there were so many things they could have done. I kept hoping they would go back to the floating city that Coral originally came from, because they had a really fun storyline there, and I'll go ahead and spoil that if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Do it.
They would discover that Baratrand, the former co-leader of the Eldritch Knights in the Wizard Complex, had become something like a lich, and had gradually taken control of the floating city. And after leaving the Wizard Complex, he had traveled the world selling magic based on that anti-god glass. That's where the priests in Fifeness got it, for example. He was the person that slowly made the floating city so bad that Coral's family eventually left, and got only to get caught in a storm and causing her to be shipwrecked. That's what was going to happen there.
Yeah, that's cool.
We never got to see that. Schubert asks, question for all of the players. In what ways are you similar to your character? In what ways do you differ? Hi, Schubert.
Hi, Schubert.
Hi, Schubert. I don't think I'm much at all like Mama Sass. Just period.
What about Coral?
I'm certainly more similar to Coral. Honestly, she's probably a lot like I was when I was younger. Maybe more confident, weirdly, towards the end of the story. But Coral, young me and Coral probably would have gotten along pretty well. I would not get along with her now.
That's funny. The nice thing about D&D is you get to become more like your character as you go. So they kind of rub off on you a little bit. So I think Zartok and I have become more like, unfortunately for everyone in my sphere over the past 5 years. So
Okay.
I think that Tara and I might share impatience.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would also smash the puzzle instead of solve it. Sounds great.
I think I actually share a lot with Aster. I'm very dramatic. I enjoy talking. I like being around people that I'm close to and enjoy spending time with people. So in that way, I'm kind of like Aster. I'm not very thiefy or agile as Aster would be, but I think I have a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of personality.
Cool. Last question.
Can we reverse a little bit?
Yeah.
Mike, an NPC you're similar to and an NPC that you're very much not.
Wow, Jessica with a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm similar to.
Mike
well,
loves shoes.
What's that?
Mike loves shoes.
Actually, I care so little about shoes.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm totally uninterested in shoes. An NPC that I'm like, I don't know.
I always thought you kind of gave off a munnish.
A mun vibe.
Yeah, just because you're so knowledgeable.
Teacher
Like a teacher kind of
feeling?
like.
Okay. All right. I'll take mun. A one that I'm.
This one should be easier.
Which one? One that I don't like?
One that you're not like.
One that I'm not like. Well, I'm not like Epilema.
There we go.
That's good.
I mean, she's my favorite one to play, but I'm not like her.
Yeah.
Bluefire64 asks, why does the outro have 13 bells that ring at the end? And Brian had the same question really early on, actually. One of the first things he asked me when he heard the theme song was, why are there 13 bell tones at the end? Here's the answer. There's one bell for each of the Olympian 12, the 12 main gods, the 12 gods of the mountain. The 13th bell is the far-off one who wants to join them but isn't allowed in.
That's amazing.
That's cool.
I never even counted the bells.
Yeah.
See, that's how I'm like Tara.
I think I did in the beginning, but
I just
that's
assumed
so
there were
long
12.
ago.
I was like, surely it's 12 bells. I didn't count that.
I never thought it. Nope. Sorry.
Very cool. Nice observation
Yeah.
by those
Yep.
folks.
Very
Yep,
cool.
I wasn't sure if anyone would ever catch that. 13 seems like a strange number. So that means we're basically at the end. Maybe we'll do another Q&A if people have more questions. But since we're basically at the end, I would like to thank all the people who made this possible and made it fun in no particular order. Of course, all the listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for talking to us on Discord. Thank you for downloading. We appreciate it. We hope you'll follow us over to Tales of Bob and House of Bob. I want to thank the folks from the House of Bob podcast, Sean, Schubert, Dan, and Alex, and Jake, who have all made various appearances on Tales from the Glass-Guarded World. I want to thank Fox from the Adventure.exe podcast for her excellent advice with audio stuff. Rhett from the Stack of Dice podcast, Ben Carter, Brandon Weigel, Podrig, Ryan from Brave Adventures, Christine, Ignacio Corva, whose art you should go look up right now, Pavel, Pink, aka Josh, aka the Pink Pastor, aka the other Josh, my wife, Liz, and especially my amazing players, Andy, Ashley, Brian, Chris, Danielle, Jessica, and Josh. Thank you so much for doing such an amazing job and continuing to do this for years. I admire you and your persistence and your ability to just keep doing just amazing role-playing. Thanks again to everyone for listening. Be sure to keep up with us over on House of Bob and Tales of Bob. And goodbye.
Yay! One last clap.
That's a last clap.
Last clap. That's an episode name, man.
So that's it. That's the story.
Thanks, Aster. It was nice to hear the parts I didn't know about.
Yeah, and the outside world sounds pretty cool. Hey, Julie, maybe we should expand our empire out there.
I would like to hear more about equivalent exchange.
Yeah, Aster, I have questions. Do I still need to give them some kind of useless junk if I burn something instead of stealing it?
Well, you're not really stealing. That's the point. You're trading. So you're both better off.
Ash is a really useful spell component. I mean, they're technically better off if I burn it instead of stealing it.
Could I give them a song when I trade something without their consent?
You're sort of trying to be sneaky. So maybe don't sing a song.
But how do you know they're better off if you don't ask them whether they want the useless junk you give them?
What if you stab them first and then take the stuff? Do you have to do equivalent exchange?
I guess that would depend on whether they're still alive.
So it is okay not to give them something if I kill them.
Yeah. I mean, I could just burn them if they have the things that I want. That sounds like the right thing to do.
Aster, it sort of sounds like you have come up with a justification for just taking things you want and not really thinking about whether it's right or wrong.
Okay. That's probably enough story time for tonight.
Wait, what if I take their stuff and then stab them? Does the order matter? Or what if I just stab them and don't take their stuff? Do I still need to leave something behind?
Yeah, Esther. I think you need to explain the moral implications of the various combinations of stabbing, taking, and leaving useless things behind.
Oh, can I sing to them while I stab them?
This makes it sound like Fireball would be a perfect way of getting the things that I
What
want.
if I forget to fly straight and they fall off my ship? Can I have their
Do
thing?
I have to stab or burn them? Or can I instead hit them very
what
hard?
if we scam them out of their things?
Everybody gets
That's
good.
morally correct according to my buddy
Everybody
Paxton.
gets the stuff
Oh,
that's there.
dear.
Thanks, Aster.